Under your leadership, how is ITAN, the Information Technology Association of Nigeria, that you're the current president, redefining its role in terms of deepening digital transformation and strengthening Nigeria's information society?
Well, ITAN, as you know, the Information Technology Association of Nigeria, has come a long way. It's an association that was set up at the time when selling boxes was the main, the main business of IT. The information technology industry, has changed quite a bit. It has developed. It's modern. It's keeping up with the world. So certainly, there's need for a change in the relationship with governments, in the relationship with industry in general, and also the relationship between ITAN and its members. As you know, ITAN is an association for the IT industry. It's not an association that focuses on the individual. It focuses on the IT companies. And the IT companies in Nigeria, having done quite well under the circumstances, have proven to be in need of a certain advocacy. Is one of our major roles in ITAN. Advocacy in establishing a better relationship with the state governments, and also with especially the international OEMs. Also coming up are the local OEMs. What kind of advocacy am I talking about? There's needs to establish a better understanding between the two parties. Quite often, there's an insufficient effort that's put into understanding each other. The OEMs have a particular objective. The objective, obviously, is to maximize sales, maximize profits, maximize entry into the markets. And while that is okay, and while that is not, also have a situation where the Nigerian economy in itself is peculiar, where the devaluation of the Naira has caused substantial difficulty among among industry in general in terms of their ability to procure information technology that is necessary for their development and for their productivity to keep up with the international community, to be part of that global village, and where you have a situation where IT inputs are very expensive in Naira. There's need, certainly, for us to take another look at the relationship between the OEMs and the IT industry in Nigeria, and the ability of the IT industry in Nigeria to serve the industry in Nigeria and the public sector. So there's also this, has been this development where the international IT companies, the multinational IT companies, have seen Nigeria as fertile ground, as a country that they can, that is worth their participating in. And again, while that's okay, there's definitely the need to look at the IT industry, the indigenous IT industry participants, so that we ensure that as far as government contracts are concerned, for example, state government contracts are concerned in the information technology area, that indigenous companies are given are allowed to participate. And I would even go as far as to say given some kind of preferential treatment or first choice of contracts. Now, one would argue that in a free market economy, that may not be the best approach. In other words, the strongest should survive, the best should get the job, the most competent should be given the opportunity to perform. However, we now have to look at certain other things, such as how can I say, the disparity between the income of a Nigerian IT professional and the income of a non-Nigerian, a European, if you like, or American IT professional, and their ability to scale up, to improve, to increase their education, to become certified, and to practice on modern equipment. In university, for example, the equipment in Nigerian universities may not be at par with the equipment that somebody studying computer science in Europe may also come across. The disparity was far greater 20 years ago. It's less now, but still, when you look at the cost of a laptop vis-a-vis the cost of an average, the salary of an average Nigerian, in an environment where obtaining hardware on credit is not that easy, you know that the Nigerian IT professional is at a great disadvantage compared to his counterparts in other countries where access to credit is better, where the dollar value of his salary is higher, and where there's more access to grants and things like that. So ITAN really comes in as a mediator, an arbitrator, an advocacy group to say, can we take another look at this? Can we look at what industry needs? Can we look at what industry is going to need over the next 10 years? Can we look at what we have on ground now in Nigeria in terms of IT professionals, certified IT professionals, access to education, IT education, technology education? Can we take a look at what the objectives of the OEMs are? And then can we look at all of that and see how we can come up with a framework, a solution, a policy, types of relationships where at the end of the day, it's a win-win for the OEMs, it's a win-win for Nigerian industry, and it's a win-win for the IT industry as well, that ITAN represents. So having said all that, this is a very complex issue, because when you have people or associations, organizations with different objectives that don't always key into one another, to get people to compromise and to understand that when we have arrived at what is close to an optimum solution, we will now all benefit. For example, when you look at the number of certified Nigerians who are certified in the IT with IT certifications, professional IT certifications, and the number that wants to be, the market is huge. So there's an opportunity for us to come together to say, okay, you want to sell certifications, we need certifications. This is our spending power. This is our large, huge volume, because it's a massive deficit of certified people, and therefore a fantastic opportunity to make some money, addressing what now is not a niche market, but a mass market. And when we talk further, we'll come to, I believe, some of those areas.
Before we dive deeper into those areas, let's look at the industry experience and pedigree that qualified the president of ITAN. You are chairman of Tranta, a Nigerian technology group that you founded in 1990. take us a little back in time, and what are the key milestones that you will highlight as having seen over the course of those decades that have essentially shaped the Nigerian IT landscape between then and now? Some of the key milestones and key highlights.
Well, interestingly, I attended a conference a while back, a year or so ago, and somebody saw me and said, "Oh my goodness, you're still alive. You're still in the IT industry." And it made me think, indeed, I've been in the IT industry for over 30 years. So I've seen a lot. When I came back from university, one of my main objective at that time, they were called computer companies, was to be the owner of the largest and best computer company in Nigeria. And I came in, and at that time, the useful computers, mainly because there was only software written for those computers, were mini computers and mainframes. So there was no software written to run on the BBC computer that we had in those days, which, relative to a smartphone, was extremely lacked power, basically. We have seen a situation where, at one time, in the early 90s, in fact, in the 80s, the only companies that used IT effectively to increase productivity were very large banks, the large banks in Nigeria. And they used IT to handle mainly processing of payroll, to be quite frank. That was all they did. There were no banking applications as such. So they used IT for payroll. We moved on, and effectively at some particular point, there was one of the biggest transformations was when we moved from being importing 100% of the computers that we had, including importing 100% of the software that we used, in Nigeria, to a situation where a number of companies came in, like Zynox, like Omatech, and started manufacturing or assembling computers locally. Now that was a big move. So the thinking that it was magic was dissolved to a situation where we can do it locally. And the government came in and opened up doors for Zynox and for Omatech to participate in the Nigerian economy by giving them preferential treatments, making them the first choice for the public sector that wanted to buy computers. So that's helped those industries to thrive. That was a good thing. What came next was a situation where we discovered that the software, some of the software that was prevalent at the time, that came from abroad, was not indigenous, was not quite designed to suit our own business environment. For example, there were no Naira signs in the accounting packages that came, and everything was done in dollars. The tax laws for payroll systems were based on British tax law or the United States tax law, and it just wasn't applicable to our local environment. And again, the Nigerian IT industry, the Nigerian entrepreneurs and professionals stepped up to the podium and said, "Hey, we can do it." And they started, producing different software that was now directly relevant to the Nigerian market. It wasn't an overnight thing. Of course, the funding was limited, so at some point in time they had to, it was a bit a bumpy ride, if you like. But today we have world-class software. Today we have world-class software engineers, and today we have, I think, 1 or 2 unicorns in the fintech industry. So if you look at where we've come from, where the use and application of information technology, hardware and software was very, very basic. At some point in time, all they were used for was to write letters and, like I said, to process payroll. To a situation now where we're using it for digital marketing. The government has adopted information technology, having effectively rolled out the national ID card, with that's NIMC, the registration of SIM cards, now the bank verification number. That makes it easier to identify individuals and basically create a safer environment for borrowing, and lending. So the practical applications of information technology in Nigeria has been marvelous. In fact, when Nigerians were able to go onto their phone and send money to their friend or family member or colleague in seconds, America was still taking 4 days to achieve that. So the citizens and people in America could not do instant transfer. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's only last year or the year before that instant transfer became a normal thing in the United States. But Nigeria was there. So we might have been a little bit late to the game, but we mastered the game and became, slightly more advanced than the economies or the countries that we had always seen and looked up to as being technologically advanced. Indeed, they are technologically advanced, but in information technology, Nigerians excel. So we've seen Nigeria come from a country where if you really wanted any good IT person, you had to import him as an expatriate. Today, Nigerians are moving, in fact, they are importing Nigerians to keep their economies afloat, to meet the deficit that they have in IT professionals that can deliver on the job, and that are, I would say, well, I've always been an advocate. You know me. I've always said Nigerians are the smartest. I've always said Nigerians are the most intelligent. We are certainly the most conscientious, and indeed probably one of the hardest working people in the world. So I'm not surprised that when we have been given an opportunity where the electricity supply is much, much better than it was 20 years ago, the access to education is much, much better than it was 20 years ago, the number of good middle-class jobs that pay a salary that allows the individual to invest in his personal development in terms of learning about new technology and becoming proficient at using it. All this has moved very quickly, especially over the last 10 years. So we have a situation where we are certainly doing very well.
Let me quickly take you up on the very important issue that you identified along the evolution of the technology landscape in Nigeria, and that was the local assembly of PC. That was subsequently followed by a series of executive order where the federal government said that, priority must be given to local initiatives in technology, PC assembly, and a whole slew of others. However, in years to follow, there's been a lot of conversation around the effective implementation and execution of those executive order. That's number one. Number two also is the fact that most of this local PC initiatives are fizzled out of the market, so to say. How do you respond to that? How do you respond?
Well, I know what you mean. In other words, the Zynox computers. I'm not sure how prevalent they are. I'm not sure how prevalent they are, and in the market, that is, how, whether they're being produced and how much and who's buying them. But I think you see, access to credits is a very important thing. Most of the consumer markets around the world have been driven and motivated, if you like, by access to credits. So if you have a manufacturer in Nigeria that is producing something that is of good quality, but he needs the volume to grow and to establish himself thoroughly into the market, he needs to have access to credit. The market needs to have access to credit. So that, I think, has been probably one of the impediments. Today, while there seems to be less emphasis on the production of boxes, on the production of equipment, hardware, there's a lot of emphasis on the production of software. Now, hardware has become a commodity. So the real value is in software now. So my focus, if I was to advise, would be to focus a lot more on the software than on the hardware. To leave those countries that have perfected the art of mass production to do what they do best. The investment required to manufacture chips, for example, is very high. And it's a very high-tech industry that it took even some very rich countries a long time before they were able to develop their own chip manufacturing industry. Until today, and it's guarded so jealously that the transfer of technology is not not an easy job. So we don't want to get involved in competition with them. What we want to do is to focus on what we are good at. We may not have the manufacturing capabilities, and we may not have developed our research institutes to develop and to design our own computer chips and our own manufacturing processes. But what we have done is become extremely good at producing software applications. We go back all the way back to when InterSwitch became a settlement house or a major switch for the banking industry in Nigeria. That was one of the revolutionary changes that took place in the country. And you and I and everybody in the country benefited from that technology that was homegrown. Now you have Flutterwave and a couple of other companies that are unicorns that are doing extremely well and helping the e-commerce industry to thrive. And that's mainly software utilizing foreign hardware. So that's local software utilizing foreign hardware. Don't be surprised if within the next 10 years, 20 years at most, that you have a situation where the major OEMs in America, in Europe, even in China and Japan and so on, come from Nigeria. because we are developing extremely good and robust software applications today. So the fact that we haven't been particularly adept at expanding internationally is only because we're, if I was to speak in Nigerian English, we're still balancing. We're still establishing a solid foundation on which to spring from. And nobody should be afraid of that. We as people should not be afraid of that. And Nigerians should not be afraid of that, about going into other markets. I happened to go to an international school where there were about, I think, 30 different nationalities present in that school. And I learned one thing. One, they're all human beings like us. Two, than the average Nigerian. In fact, they're not smarter than the best of us, even. So we can compete. That's the summary of it all. We can compete well. We can deliver quality that exceeds their expectations, which should always be the target of anybody in business. To deliver quality that exceeds your audiences or your target market's expectations. That is, then you're scoring an A+. Then your customer base is happy. So yes, the move towards becoming a country that produces all its hardware stumbled. Hasn't fallen, but it stumbled. It may still come back. But certainly, what is more important is software. Look at crypto. Crypto is run on blockchain. Crypto is not, hardly do you hear people mention that the major challenge is hardware. Hardware is standard. Hardware is there. It's excellent. I give it to the OEMs that produce the hardware. Great job. Keep it up, I would say to them. But their hardware is of no value without the software. And that's where we come in. Now, apart from software, we must mention the IT support companies, the IT outsourcing companies in Nigeria. Tranta IT, for example, has been providing IT support since 1998 and has over 400 staff. You see, so it has become one of the best. It has become one of the largest, which was my dream when I started out. So that has been achieved. Is it as big as it should be, as it could be? No. When we have 10,000 staff, I think then I'd sit down and say yes, we've done justice to the task. And how do we create 10,000 jobs? It's really quite simple. We have the largest, well, one of the largest English-speaking populations in the world. We are probably the youngest of all in terms of the average age of our people. We're a very young population, very vibrant. We're well educated. We take education very seriously. It's part of our culture. It's part of our tradition, education. And if you look at the statistics in many countries abroad, we're the best. We achieve the best results. I'm not saying that to make anybody feel bad. It's just a fact. The results speak for us. And it's not an ambiguous or a debatable issue. The results speak for us. I think there was a time they said the largest number of we're the most educated ethnic group in the United States, for example. So I think that we have a very good journey ahead of us, but there are certain building blocks that, if we don't take seriously, if we don't focus on and establish those building blocks, we won't be able to achieve, our if you like, God-given destiny. The fact that we have all that I've mentioned says that God loves us. He has blessed us, and therefore we ought to take advantage of the talents that He has given to us. And that's where the leadership comes in. That's where ITAN comes in. That's where I come in as the president of ITAN. That's where all the other technology industry associations come in. The ones in charge of telecoms, the ones in charge of software, the ones in charge of renewable energy, the ones in charge of industry. That's when they come in. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is not left out. The Association of Agricultural Companies is not left out. The head of the Nigerian Civil Service is not left out. All are very, very important components within the overall ecosystem that would make the Nigeria great, that will make Nigeria achieve its optimum potential, its highest potential. You see, I don't think it's by mistake that we are intellectually good. I'm trying to be diplomatic and a little bit humble. I don't think it's a mistake. I think we were granted that gift to be smart. And therefore, we have an opportunity to use that smartness, and I don't mean anything negative, to use that genius, to use that intelligence for legal productive efforts, for legal productive work, so that we can move into an importance as a vibrant, a group that contributes meaningfully to the overall development of the world economy, where we are seen as a blessing to the world, and not as pariahs, where we are seen as people of integrity, because we build systems that ensure that even those without integrity have to have integrity, because the systems will force you to be men and women of integrity. And this is important, because you see, one of the developments that has taken place is our strength in cybersecurity. The development or the initiation that's run by Dr. Olatunji, who used to be part of NITSDA, the NDPR, the Data Protection Agency. You know, I mean, that is absolutely important to protect data. And we can't participate in the international community if we don't have systems that ensure that everybody's data is protected. So we need to be very well aware of what's happening with GDPR, with HIPAA, the American data protection for medical information. We need to key into that. NDPR is based, I believe, to some extent on GDPR, so I'm happy about that. Then we have ISO 20000, ISO 27001, which is also about information security. We need to take that very, very seriously to make sure that all our IT industry participants are certified as ISO 27001, that those who are involved in service management are certified in ISO 20000, and those who want to tell the world that we are of high quality should be certified in ISO 9001. And these things, if they were offered, if they were, and I hate to use this word, slightly subsidized, based on, how do they call it? Aggregate procurement. In other words, we can guarantee that we're going to give you a huge amount of business, therefore drop the price and let more people be able to afford it, and then provide credit to enable them to get it and pay over time. If we have a large number of members, a large number of technology industry who are certified, as I've just described, then the world will pay attention. And when we go and knock on their door, we're knocking on their door with the appropriate credentials. It's just like a Nigerian going to Oxford University, Cambridge, or MIT, or Harvard, or Yale, or University of Ibadan, and going to say, hey, these are my, and University of Lagos, and others who are wonderful like them, and saying, this is my certificate. It's easy for them to get a job. But if you go with a certification that nobody understands, that hasn't been accredited, then people are going to ask you to go and do the other certification to ensure that you're at par with their doctors, or at par with their technologists, or at par with their security people.
And that brings us naturally to the next question about emerging technology. Nigeria is part of the Global Committee of Nations, and so as Nigeria adopt technologies like AI, like blockchain, cloud computing, and all of that, where do you see the biggest opportunities, and how can the country remain globally competitive?
Oh, that's emerging technologies, AI, blockchain, you know, and how they're used. You know, when you look at AI, a lot of people have thought about AI as being a technology that is used like Google. And recently on social media, I see that advertised that way. You know, AI is not Google. I mean, indeed, it's not. And even the AI that those of us who think we're smart have identified AI to, you know, as being, AI is a lot more than that. AI embedded in systems is starting to make, you know, to make that word productivity have a different meaning, because we thought we were productive, and we need to ensure that we continue to be more productive. So AI in agriculture, AI in manufacturing, AI in supply chain management, combined with blockchain in supply chain management, can go a long way. You know, take for example, you know, in agriculture, you know, take AI in agriculture, and then utilize the Internet of Things. Use Internet of Things, or use devices to acquire data from the environment, from the soil, you know, temperature, humidity, wind speed, moisture, rainfall measurements, wind direction, and then collect that data continuously throughout the year and over years. Eventually, AI will be able to predict for you, this season, this is when you plant, this is what you plant at that time, this is when you harvest, and this is what's going to happen to the weather, this is the amount of water you will need given the weather that it has predicted based on models that AI would develop over the last 1 to 10 years. Of course, the more data, the better. And then, so AI mixed with IoT, the Internet of Things, collecting data wirelessly from the field, plugged into data analysis that is AI-enabled with predictive capabilities, you'll find out that eventually there'll be little or no risk to farmers. Now, when you combine AI again with the Internet of Things in poultry farming or livestock farming, the Internet of Things devices can even tell you, well, they can collect the data from the cows, from the goats, from the chickens, and tell you when it is, well, mainly for the cows and the goats and the rams and so on, tell you when this particular cow is ready for mating. Even if you have 10,000 cows, it can give you information on each individual cow. at a price that is really over. If you appropriate it over 10 years, it's pennies. It's a negligible cost. However, I keep coming back to this. The initial capital required to implement these types of solutions is beyond the reach of most Nigerian entrepreneurs or manufacturers or agriculturalists, because access to credit is difficult, number one, and number two, even if you have access to it, it's above 30% today. You know, as in some cases as much as 60% per annum. Whereas in other countries that we're competing with, it's between 1 and 12%. 15% maybe. 18% even for credit cards. 19%. You see what I mean? So we that's why the OEMs and the government and the agencies and the entrepreneurs and all of us, the leaders, have to come together to agree on how do we move forward in order for us to be the best we can be, in order for us to achieve the greatest results within the shortest amount of time, utilizing the least results. You see, let me tell you something. Once you have developed software, minimizing the number of people that can use it because your price is high doesn't seem to make much sense to me. If you can, this is just like many things in the world. Once it is mass, like telephones, you know, when you have 30 million users, you don't have to charge. How much was it in those days? It was ridiculous. I mean, a SIM card. I bought my first SIM card, I think, for 120,000 Naira. Today, do you even have to pay? I don't know. Maybe it's 500 Naira. 20 years later, right? Or 10 years later, it's 500 Naira. And the Naira has been devalued tremendously. So it's more or less zero. Why? There's mass markets. There are not people who are acquiring it. So that's where I'm not sure if we've gone off track, but the fact of the matter is that the innovation in the market, AI, in the technology industry, AI is critical, and even though it's very, very, very dangerous and will be later on for human existence, I'll leave that to those who handle those types of national security issues. But for business, it's brilliant, and the sooner we embrace AI in all the 40 million micro, small, and medium enterprises in Nigeria, 40 million plus. If those 40 million can be educated on AI, and then we can negotiate that national license or industry segmented licenses with ChatGPT or whatever other AI you want to use, and we give these people access to knowledge on how to use it and access to it. I mean, I can't even imagine what our GDP will be like in 10 years. I don't think, it will grow dramatically, because productivity is Nigeria's number one problem. Productivity. Because I promised myself before coming onto this interview that I would say nothing negative about Nigeria. But I'll say something very positive about Nigeria. If we focus on productivity and provide Nigerian entrepreneurs, businessmen, manufacturers, etc., provide them with access to AI training and AI access, we will not have to worry about our GDP ever again.
That brings us naturally to the next, beyond the entrepreneurs, to the next key demographics, and that's the youth. So today, let's look at youth empowerment. What are the key initiatives that ITAN is supporting to enhance digital skills and employment and employability among young Nigerians today?
You see, my grandfather was a teacher in Elisha. he eventually built his own school. He was so keen and passionate about education. He educated the minds of his 4 sons, my father being the second in rank, Chief Lare Ayoola, and my grandfather so educated their minds. And there's education in school, but there's also education of the mind, that they put it in their minds that they were going to go to Oxford University. And they did. 3 of them did. Justice Lare Ayoola went. My father, chartered accountant, eventually he became a chartered, went. His junior brother, Justice Olayinka Ayoola of the Supreme Court and chairman of ICPC, went. And their junior brother went to University of Ibadan, studied medicine, is currently a professor of medicine in the United States. Education. Education is key. So my thinking is always about education. If you look at the history of the Tranta Group, when I stood up at a particular award session, the managing director of Microsoft Nigeria took the microphone from me when I was being, apparently, according to him, being too humble, and said to people that I was the father of IT and that I had trained thousands of IT professionals in Nigeria. And I had to think, and I thought, wow, actually I have. So I believe in education. I believe in certification. So what is ITAN going to do? ITAN is launching a program that will result in the cost of IT certification and ICT certification, in other words, all technology certification. We have broadened it beyond IT. We have had meetings with other IT association presidents, technology association presidents, like Tony, for example, of the telecoms industry, and said, look, let's focus on this. How do we want to make certification for our professionals in the IT industry, in the communications industry, in the software industry. We want to, in the cybersecurity industry, we want to make the certifications affordable. Let me give you an example. Well, let me give you some facts. Do you know that an IT professional in America, let's do a demographic, right? Certified in his field, 5 years experience, what does he earn? He earns between $5,000 and $10,000 a month. His counterparts in Nigeria earns 10% of that. So how come that counterpart in Nigeria has to pay the same price for IT certification as this other man who earns 10 times his salary? 10 times. So the disparity in earning capacity in dollar terms is so detrimental to the ability of Nigerians to be able to afford certification. That is something that should be of national concern. Why? Do you know that I think Nigeria is short of about 400,000 certified cybersecurity experts today? 400,000. That's the shortage. Based on one research I read, even if it's half that, that's potentially 200,000 people who need to be certified for our country to be safe in terms of cybersecurity. Now, you and I know that wars nowadays can be fought on the battlefield with bullets and so on, or they can be fought in the cyber world. You can bring down countries using cyber attacks. Should we be taking it lightly? I don't think so. So we are working with other industry, technology industry association presidents, and we're going to meet with the government, who I know is open to this type of conversation. And we're going to come together to make sure that IT or technology certifications, from IT to telecoms to software to cybersecurity, that all of them are affordable and in line with the earning capacity or the earning power of Nigerians, so that Nigerians can become certified. So we have a target, and that target is to train and certify. That's ITAN has a target, to train and certify 1 million Nigerians. Not just in computer appreciation, which seems to be the norm. For decades, we've been happy with knowing that our people know how to open a file on a computer. I think we've gone beyond that. We need to focus on what matters to the country, what matters to the world. Because you have at least 1 million Nigerians who the world is waiting for to help the world to survive. I know that sounds very dramatic, doesn't it? Many countries in the world, they don't have enough young people. Most of their population is old. In Nigeria, we have 60% of our population is young. We're unique. No other country matches us in terms of youth. So we are the reservoir of IT professionals of the world. Now, we only become a useful reservoir if we certify those individuals, which means, of course, we have to train them and we have to certify them. And then we have to put them into mentorship programs and into internship programs. And this is what ITAN is going to do. The paper is written already. The webinar will take place in about a month, and we'll publicize that shortly.
Let's frame this a little bit better. So I will take you up on that to say many Nigerians today struggle to pay for these professional IT certifications that you've identified due to foreign exchange currency requirement. Okay, so to better understand this and to better put it in context, what is your view on this, and what can be done to make global certification more accessible locally and for Nigerians?
We did our research. Our research showed that 100% of recognized IT certifications that we need are sold in dollars, in US dollars. Not only that, you have to be able to pay online.